I'm Judi Vitale with ReadTheStars.com. I'm here today to talk about the death of Muammar Gaddafi, the supposed death of Muammar Gaddafi, the changes in that part of the world, and some of the things that are going on in this part of the world too, and the planet Uranus. Planet Uranus right now is in retrograde. It's going backwards through the sky in the early degrees of Aries, bringing us back, if you remember when we talked about Uranus going retrograde, bringing us back to the time in the spring when all of these uprisings were going on in the Middle East. To give you an idea of how momentous it was for Uranus to move into Aries, it happened just as we had the earthquake in Japan. And I might add, if I may cite Wikipedia, that was on March 10th, France became the first nation to recognize the National Transition Council of the anti-government rebels as the sole representative of Libya. This is significant because this is the moment at which the Western world no longer recognized Muammar Gaddafi. France was the first, but certainly the arrival of the bombs and the guns and the planes signified that the rest of the Western world was right there with them. What happened in Libya was extremely violent, and I believe this is because it had to do with Uranus. Uranus is at its opposing point to the Uranus at the time of Gaddafi's government's birth, okay? So, as this is occurring, the place comes to, the whole idea comes to a midlife crisis, and it wants to break with the past to go on into the future. Much of that also, if you look at the date of this, okay, Gaddafi came into power on September 1st, 1969. Look at our country and what was going on in 1969. There, too, there weren't as violent of riots. We didn't have, world leaders laying around on the ground. We did have a few people randomly shot, which was very, very awful to live through. And to have happened, to have good people shot is always a bad thing. Gaddafi, maybe not such a great person, but still it's a very violent image. Imagine being a child and seeing the man that you think of as your leader, and now he's laying on the ground being bloodied. I mean, what does that do to one's psyche? It shows that Uranus has this power to break with the past and to move on into the future. Well, right now in America, we're also going through a midlife crisis with that point back in the 60s where everything was groovy and we were all protesting and running around with the war, and people were living a different lifestyle from what they call the establishment. And it's very interesting to see Occupy Wall Street, Occupy LA, Occupy Boston, and to see the sorts of things that people are asking for, and then to hear them compare themselves to the Arab Spring, when in the Arab Spring people were asking for things like bread, food, to stop this nasty dictator from running our lives. I'm not saying that everything is wonderful in America. However, I think that we need to examine ourselves and look and see where we are in terms of our midlife crisis. Because if you go out in your midlife crisis and you're a guy and you go out and buy that fancy sports car, or you're a lady and you start walking around in mini skirts because you figure this is the last time that you can get away with wearing them, what do you do after that? That's really what everybody in the world has to think about now, because with so many changes going on, Pluto and Capricorn eroding at our institutions, Uranus and Aries on the cardinal axis shaking everything up, literally in places like Japan. And then also Saturn in Libra, it's coming to the end of Libra now, but it is still, in those cardinal signs and causing us to suffer hardship in reality. And then Neptune, which is right now back in Aquarius and is about to move into another sign when it moves into Pisces. And, the idealism that is likely to come, and the fact that nobody knows what the truth is anymore. Think about how I started saying about Gaddafi's death. Do I really believe it? I'm not sure. But that's what's been announced today. And I believe that it's probably because Uranus is back to the point where it was when this whole thing started back in the spring. So there'll be an article up on the site with a few more details. But I just wanted to cover all of this material and to invite you to give me your opinions of what's going on. You can send them to Judi, Judi, at ReadTheStars.com. And if they're good, we'll talk about them. Okay? Thanks very much. Have a great day.